Post it live for attendees. Hi, everyone. We are so sorry that we are starting a few minutes late, but I am so excited to bring Ranger Glen all the way from Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. And Ranger Glen, thank you so much for your perseverance and making this work for our students. And we do have one group of students, so I want to, if don't take your off camera, but we have one Miss Conrady's class. If you wave to everybody, we have a special behind the scenes. Everybody else, if you have questions for Ranger Glen, please put them in the Q&A, and we'll definitely answer questions from Miss Conrady's class and from our guests joining us just virtually. So Ranger Glen, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right, thank you. So as you can tell, I'm walking back to my original spot. I was worried whether or not I had to go back to my office for this. Yeah, the overlook that I'm walking to right now is called Kupina Ipali, and this overlook is one of my favorites. It offers a really wide view of the crater, Kilauea crater, Kilauea volcano. And unfortunately, in the time that it took us to get set up, the clouds came in, so the crater is kind of misted over right now. But I'll try and see if I can get you folks a view. So just bear with me. Okay, I'm gonna just wipe off my screen real quick because it's been raining. Okay. And I'll see if I can flip my camera around.
At the top, you should have a camera icon with a drop-down menu, and then pick your camera. Does that show on your screen? Kind of by the mic and the Sharo. If not, you could kind of do it selfie style, where you turn around and like it's over your shoulder.
I'll just turn it around for you folks.
Sorry about that.
No worries. As you can see, it's pretty fogged in right.
Oh, we can kind of see the crater a little bit over to the right.
Wow, what is there?
Wow, that's huge.
Let me wipe off the camera screen. Yeah, so it's pretty massive. Yeah, so here at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, we have two volcanoes within the parklands. So the one that you're looking at right now and that I'm actually in currently is Kilauea volcano. And if we pan a little bit more this way, I don't think you folks might not be able to see it all that clearly, but past all the clouds there, that's our other volcano, Mauna Loa. So Mauna Loa is our largest volcano by far. It comprises about 50% of this island's mass. And it's so heavy because of its mass that it's actually creating a dent on the oceanic crust as being dragged along the Pacific plate. Yeah, very, very big. It's classified as one of the world's largest shield volcanoes. So yeah, very cool volcano.
What makes it a shield volcano versus another type of volcano, Ranger Glen?
A really good question. So most of you folks might be familiar with the cone-shaped volcanoes. We call them stratovolcanoes or composite volcanoes. They have a lot of gas and ash mixed in with their magma. So when they erupt, they're very explosive. So they kind of create like these cinder cone shapes as they build up over time. And they typically form a plate boundary. Either plates spread apart from each other, or where you get a subduction boundary where one plate goes under the other. But here in Hawaii, our volcanoes are created by a different process called hotspots. So our hotspots push up magma right in the middle of our Pacific plate to the surface and create volcanoes. And so because of this, our magma doesn't have a whole lot of gas and ash like the stratovolcanoes do. So when they erupt, they're what we call effusive or non-explosive. So they fountain out when they erupt, and it's fairly gentle for a volcanic eruption. So because of this, they kind of fountain out and ooze out the sides. So the lava is able to form gentle slopes over time. And over millions of years, they build layers over themselves until you get these big dome shapes. Kind of like Captain America's shield if you turned it on its side. That's why they have the name shield volcanoes.
Do we know how old the volcanoes are, like the ones in your park? When were they formed? Or did they form under and then come up to where they could be seen? But is there an age range that we would know for volcanoes?
Yeah, so approximate age range for our island itself is about 700,000 years old. As far as the volcanoes themselves, I would say that they probably age differently, like when they erupted, like or that they first started forming, but they're all supplied by the same magma or by the same hotspot. Just the magma chambers might form at different times. So our volcanoes are probably they're within 700,000 years old, but these are not the only islands that this hotspot has created. It's created several others further to the northwest of us. That would be the main island chain comprising Oahu, Molokai, Lanai, um, Niihau, and Kauai, and Koho'olawe. About 8 islands in the main chain, and there are hundreds more further than that that have made our hotspot, but they're so far away from our hotspot now because they've been moving away due to the tectonic plate that they're just little tiny islands now called atolls that are maybe just a few feet above sea level.
Wow. So are these active? Are they dormant?
Yes, they are active. No, they are fully active. They're just not actively erupting right now. So now that the clouds have cleared away a bit, folks can see a little bit better crater.
Mhm. Wow,
Yeah.
that's so amazing.
Yeah, so even though it's all cooled off at the top, at the base of the crater there, there's still a lot of magma roiling underneath it, just waiting to erupt. And a few weeks ago, we really thought we were going to get an eruption because there was a really big, like I think 5.7 earthquake that
Wow.
pretty much everybody on the island felt, but it didn't erupt. So what happened was that instead of the magma pushing up and out of the surface, it did instead what we call a lateral intrusion, where something created enough space for it. So instead of going up, it went to the side.
Oh,
Stayed
so
underneath the surface.
wow, interesting. We do have
Yeah.
a student from Ms. Conradi's class ready to ask us a question. Tell us your name and then ask us the question, please. Make sure you unmute.
Yes.
My name is Jason. My question is, how did Mauna Loa become the biggest shield volcano?
Did you hear that, Ranger Glenn? How did
Yes,
it
I
become the
did.
biggest shield volcano? Great question. Thank
Excellent
you.
question. Yeah, so our Mauna Loa has been a very active volcano. So it's had a lot of eruptions in the past. So because of that, and the way that our shield volcanoes erupt, it's very gentle and fountainy, so it just oozes over the side. It's just created a lot of lava flows along its slopes. So it's had quite a bit of time, like a few 100,000 years, to just really build up those layers over time. Yeah, so it's almost kind of thing like cake layers. Like it just stacks one layer on top of the other, getting bigger and bigger. More than likely, our hotspot's just been very active. So it was able to supply a lot of magma for that eruption. Yeah, that's pretty much what I can say for why it's the biggest. It's just had a lot of supply from the hotspot of magma. So it's
Gotcha.
just been very eruptive. However, I'll say this. The last eruption that we had was November of 2022. But prior to that, Mauna Loa had not erupted for almost 40 years. So
How many years was that? The wind caught you. It erupted for how many years?
almost 40 years it didn't erupt.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
We
so
have another.
volcanoes. Oh yes, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say volcanoes. Sometimes we think of eruptions as great big like that. Even if magma, if lava, if the magma and lava hit the surface, is that technically an eruption, even if it doesn't do the big explosion that we're used to?
No, so anytime that lava breaches the surface, it's still an eruption. Just that they're not always grand things. So sometimes the lava will just like bubble at the surface and ooze out. Usually, if we have eruptions here at the summit, it's usually contained here. It doesn't go towards the ocean. But when we have eruptions along Kilauea's rift zones, then those eruptions tend to go all the way to the ocean and be very grandiose.
Wow. We have another question coming from Ms. Conradi's class. Let me pop that student over. Please tell us your name and what's your question.
My name is Brendan. What inspires you to explore?
What inspires you to explore or be a
Ooh.
ranger there? Great question. Thank you.
That's a great, excellent question. I just feel inspired by the natural beauty that's here, as well as the culture of the indigenous people that still practice here today. So, being born and raised here in Hawaii, I'm not indigenous Hawaiian, but I'm more involved in the culture than any other of my ethnic identities. So because of that, it makes me want to know more about the natural processes here in Hawaii through the lens of Hawaiian culture. It's a way for me to help connect and get closer to it, so that helps me to be a better park ranger and explorer, just to have that great connection with the land and culture.
So we've learned, so we've had like 15 sessions today from parks across. We try to get a lot of different regions and ecosystems, but we've learned today that the logo is to protect and preserve. And so it sounds like not only are you protecting the physical ecosystem there, but also the cultural ecosystem of the people connected to Hawaii, because that's a kind of that's a little bit more of a unique thing than some of our other sessions. How long so we've learned that the volcanoes themselves are like hundreds of thousands of years old. How long has Hawaii Volcano National Park been a national park in the system?
Okay, Hawaii Volcanoes National Park has been operating for a little over 100 years. I think in 1916 is when it officially became a park. But prior to that, people were coming here to observe the volcanoes. And it was one of the most famous volcanologists, Dr. Thomas Jagger. He was a major part in helping to establish national parks here, so that people could have a safe way to view the volcanoes, as well as geologists having a safe place to study them. And so a little over 100 years old, this park.
Very amazing. I have one more question, and then we'll go back to Ms. Conradi's class. We can see now I've lost my word, the divot so I see the rim closest to you. It kind of looks like there could be water on the other side, but what's on the other side of the rim far away from us when we're looking at this volcano?
Okay, so all of this stuff here.
Sorry, I took you off the screen instead of me off the screen. So let me get it off the screen so it's all just you. There we go. Now go.
Okay. So you're talking about all this stuff in the background? Yeah. So that's actually the lower edges of my lower slopes.
Oh, cool.
Kind of blue hue stuff. Yeah. So the parkland actually does extend all the way to the ocean. And we have some pretty unique formations over there. We have a sea arch there called Hole that won't be there forever. They're just basically carved out arches from wave action over many, many years. And you folks might be able to see there's like some white looking stuff.
We see it.
At the base of this crater. So what that is, it's sulfur mineral deposits, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever seen that myself. Living here for a little over 30 years, I've never seen mineral formations in the crater. So it's, like I said, it's new for me, but it's really cool because it seems like it's just continuously growing. It almost looks like there's snow down there.
It does.
Yeah.
Completely different than snow. Are you ready, Ranger Glen, for another question from our guest students?
Yes.
Okay, let me pop them over. Okay, Ms. Conradi's class, tell us your name and what question do you have for Ranger Glen?
My question is, what is the farthest volcano?
What is the farthest? Is that what you asked?
Strongest.
Oh, strongest. Sorry. Is there a strongest volcano? Do you mean like powerful or how much it, like that type of, is that kind of your question?
He said yes.
Oh, okay, sorry, we have to unmic and mic. Yeah, so kind of the most, I guess maybe there's different measures of power, because another question came from our people that are in Miss Conradi's class was, is there a way to tell that a volcano might start erupting? And maybe that's the different level of powerful as well. Can you predict? Because we have tornadoes and we do have a few earthquakes here in the Midwest these days. And we can kind of tell that a tornado is coming because two storm systems are getting together. It's not 100% predictable, but is there a way to know how powerful a volcano might be and if it is going to erupt?
Okay, so long and short answer is we don't have any way of predicting like the power of an eruption. In terms of like strongest volcanoes, I would say, if I could say one who is the strongest volcano, I might say it's Mauna Loa, only because of its size and location. It's almost central to the island. So when it erupts, everybody on the island worries because depending on which side of the mountain the flow goes, it can affect people in different ways. If it erupts on the southern slopes, the southwestern slopes of its mountain, those sides are much steeper than the other sides. So the lava flow can reach the ocean in about 3 hours.
Wow.
Which is very concerning because there are rural communities out there who live off grid. So for one thing, they probably wouldn't know if an eruption alert went out unless they felt the earthquakes. And two, there's no real way of letting or getting information to them because they live off grid. So
gotcha. So
that is concerning. But if
are
it
there,
erupts on a, what's that?
Go ahead, sorry, if it erupts on the.
But if it erupts on the northern side slopes, those are a lot more gentle. So it might take a few weeks for it to reach any kind of house or roadway, because there's not as much people there. And as far as it being able to predict volcanoes, so geologists and volcanologists work very hard to try to do that. But like any other natural phenomena, it's possible to predict with absolute accuracy when something will occur. But that being said, what our scientists can do is they look for patterns. So we look at the amount of earthquakes that happen in a time period. So if there's a lot of earthquakes happening in a short amount of time, that's usually a good indication that pressure is building up somewhere. Like we look at the amount of earthquakes, the time period, and the location of them all. So if they're happening right beneath the summit of the volcanoes, that we can say, an eruption is probably very imminent. It's building up all that pressure, and it'll erupt soon. So that's when we can say, we're gonna move the alert level from watch to advisory. And so everybody be prepared. And sometimes it tricks us. We thought like what happened a few weeks ago. We thought there was going to be an eruption because the pattern fit, and another pattern is usually right before eruptions we get big quakes. So that's why we thought there was going to be an eruption.
Gotcha.
But like I said, it kind of threw us a curve. But it did that lateral intrusion, so it went to the side instead of going up. Yeah.
So it's technically not a true eruption happened because it didn't break the surface, but they were predicting that something was happening and something did happen. It just didn't come to the surface. It went sideways. So them watching the pattern of something happening was accurate. It just didn't make it to the surface. It went sideways. We have another question from Ms. Conradi's class. Let me go ahead and get them over. Make sure you tell us her name and what is your question?
Okay, so my name is Adriana, and my question is, when was the first Mauna Loa eruption?
Mauna Loa.
What was the first Mauna Loa eruption?
What was the first Mauna Loa eruption?
Yep. Great question. Thank you, Adriana.
Okay. Alrighty. The very first Mauna Loa eruption, I don't have the exact date memorized, but we can go back as far recorded history will take us, and that is, I think, the mid 1800s. Yeah, I think like when they actually first like written documentation, I should say. But yeah,
So
there have
about
been eruptions.
140 years ago or so.
Yeah, so mind you, that is like when we first started to document, like written form these eruptions. Mauna Loa has been erupting for many hundreds of thousands of years.
So the first recorded one where we started keeping records was in like 1880s, but obviously it had been erupting before that. It's just that the history of it wasn't written down at that point until then. Great. And then I'm so glad that it kind of cleared up to be able to see it. I'm glad the weather agreed with us a little bit, even though technology got us at the beginning. I'm glad we stuck through it. I do have another Ms. Conradi question. So will you tell us your name and then what is your question? Make sure to speak up nice and loud.
I'm Ariana, and why do some people in Hawaii like coconuts?
Why? So part of Hawaii is the habitat and the ecosystem, and does the ecosystem not only benefit and I guess, are there animal adaptations within your park? And then obviously people who live on an island because it is surrounded by water, so they're I don't know if isolated is the right term. What do they use on the what have they adapted to using on the island, such as the fruits or berries or natural vegetables, whether it be animal adaptations for that environment or human?
Okay, yeah, so because of Hawaii's unique isolation from other land masses, life that got here many millions of years ago had the opportunity to evolve really unique adaptations for surviving on these islands. So one of our native plants that got here on its own power, the ohia tree, and yeah,
Oh wow!
so this tree right here. This is ohia, and this tree has developed some very unique adaptations for surviving near volcanoes. So one of the cool things it can do is its leaves. Trees pretty much breathe through their leaves, similar to how we breathe. But during times when eruptions are happening very frequently and there's a lot of toxic gas being produced, it's not good for the tree to be breathing that in. So what ohia have adapted to do is they can essentially hold their breath. So they close all the little tiny holes in their leaves that they breathe through, and they hold their breath. And they can do that under laboratory conditions. They were shown to do that for up to 2 weeks.
Oh wow!
Breath. Yeah, in the wild it could be longer.
So they've learned to adapt to protect themselves so that they're not breathing in the bad fumes and toxins or ash and things like that. That's an amazing adaptation. Are there human impacts to your park that we have negatively or positively impacted the environment or the volcanoes in that area? What's been the human impact on the ecosystem?
Oh, the human impact has always been great. So when the first Polynesians first came to the islands to settle them over about 1,000 years ago, they did reduce the native bird population. So certain species of birds did go extinct due to what's the word? Collections. So some of the birds, their feathers were very prized for making capes, and so some birds did go into extinction. Not only from gathering, but mainly from habitat destruction. When people settle, they have to clear space to create their buildings and whatnot. So some of the habitat for certain bird species were lost. As a result, some of the birds went extinct.
Wow.
Then when European contact came a few hundred years later, that's when we felt the greater impacts. So there was more development, more habitat loss, and a greater loss of species. And then to compound on top of that, after Western contact, we also had introduction of foreign predators, as well as mosquitoes, which brought diseases like avian malaria. So along with habitat degradation, you have these other effects contributing to species extinction, like disease, predators, and now the new one that we're facing is climate change. Climate change is seriously affecting our birds. The mosquitoes, because our overall climate is warming up here in Hawaii, the mosquitoes are able to climb higher in elevation, which means that the native birds have less mosquito-free habitat. And some of them are very susceptible to avian malaria.
Wow. Who would think that the mosquitoes going higher would impact that? You don't often hear about that, even though that's very unique. Like, thank you for sharing. So a lot of human impact and then has impacted the park and that area. We do have another question from Ms. Conradi's class, and then this will be our last question from the class, and then we will close out to let you go, and then hopefully we get one last view as we're leaving. But let's go ahead and get the student over. Ms. Conradi's class, make sure you tell us your name and what's your question, hon.
Hi, my name is Bentley, and what happens when lava hits water?
What happens when the lava hits the water? You talked about on one side it would take several hours to get to the water. So what happens when those two things meet?
Oh, that's a really good question. So when lava hits water, there is a rapid cooling. A lot of energy gets released. So there's a big flash of steam, and the water around the ocean water around the spot where the lava is sinking into gets heated up. So you get a release of water vapors, as well as some other noxious fumes like sulfur dioxide that get released. And then you can also get particulate matter. So sometimes when the lava rapidly cools, it can break apart other bits of lava that were already kind of like more cooled and a bit harder. So you get particles flying all over. Sometimes we get what's called lava bombs, which is basically when a slightly cooled off chunk of lava gets rapidly cooled, like when hitting water, and the energy that gets released propels it into the air. And I think in the last 2018 eruption, so the eruption of 2018, there were people doing a boat tour to see the lava entering the ocean. They got too close, unfortunately, closer than regulation allows. And one passenger got hit by a lava bomb in their leg. They lived, thankfully, but now they have a cool story to tell. I'm pretty sure it won't go well.
Wow. Very, 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 very interesting. I'm going to take one more question from the people joining us virtually versus the class. Thank you, Ms. Conradi's. Let me put Ms. Conradi's whole class over there. And I want to thank you guys. So wave to everybody. Thank you, Ms. Conradi's class, for being our guest class for this session. Thank you, everyone. And then from our people joining us virtually, is there a way to count how many volcanoes there are in all of the Hawaiian Islands? Is there a number, or do they blend together, or do you know where one starts and one stops?
Okay, so on this island, there are 5.
And tell us the island you're on again.
So I'm on Hawai'i Island.
Perfect.
It
Thank you.
also has the nickname Big Island. Yeah, so on Hawai'i Island, we have about 5 volcanoes altogether. I'm on Kilauea, then Mauna is over here. And then the other 3 to the north of the island is Mauna Kea, and to the very far northwest is Kohala, which is classified extinct. And then just below that a bit on the western side of the island is Hualalai. That one, it's not classified as extinct. I think it's dormant. Mauna Kea and Hualalai have not erupted for a very long time, but the potential is still there for them to erupt because they're still technically on the hotspot.
Wow.
But yeah, hopefully they don't. because that would be very upsetting.
Yes, I bet. I bet. So I want to, Ranger Glenn, thank you so much for persevering with getting the tech issue out of the way. It's a new tech product. And as much as I love tech, we would not be able to do things like this, like visit your park. I know in person that's great, but our students landlocked in the middle of the United States can see truly the beauty of it. It's a little bit different than just a photo, and your knowledge of sharing of the culture and the animals, the ecosystem, the impact. Just, I can't thank you enough for bringing your knowledge to our students here in Kansas. And we might have some students joining us from other places. So thank you again. Is there a way that we could have maybe just 30 seconds of just seeing the volcano? And so let me take myself off the screen because I don't need to be a part of that.
You know, the one good thing about the rain earlier was that there was a nice rainbow inside the crater.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very, very pretty.
Well, if we visit Hawaii, I hope we are as respectful as the culture and give the true visit that it does, and come visit because this national park visitors are allowed, and there's a lot of information. And I'm sure standing there and seeing it in person is even more magical than you sharing it with us today. And again, my heartfelt thank you and gratitude for joining us and giving this learning opportunity so our kids can visit your park, and taking us outside and seeing it was so magical. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Ranger Glenn.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And yes, I hope we can do this again, hopefully with less issues in the future.
Yes, yes, one of those. And yes, definitely you'll be on we do this every year around this time. And so you will definitely be one that we'll reach out to get you on the schedule again. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Alrighty. Yes, like I
Bye.
said, my pleasure, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
All right, bye, students. Have a nice day.